Okay, so these are the new parts for a complete air conditioning replacement for a 2012 F-150 4X4. This is a 5.0 liter engine. So I have the new compressor. I also have PAG 46 oil. However, that's going to be used to lubricate some of those gaskets there that you see on the left, because the new compressor actually came with 90 milliliters of PAG oil already in it. The AC Pro, this is going to be the R134 Alpha that we're going to use to place into the system. A new dryer receiver, it's the big white thing right there in the middle, as well as a expansion valve. So I am going to replace everything to include the condenser right there. And I'm going to leave a link below to all of these parts and where I found them all on Amazon. So the problem that I had with the air conditioning is that the compressor clutch actually got stuck on my way up to Orlando from Miami. So that's about a 3.5 hour trip, and halfway through the air conditioner stopped blowing cold air. Well, it was the middle of the night and I just didn't have the ability to stop, pull over and see what was going on. But then I did some troubleshooting the next morning, found out the compressor was not disengaging at all when I was turning the air conditioning system off, which it's supposed to do. And I actually had to go and actually take the bolt off and use a little pry tool, and I got it off. But by that time, after I took it off and cleaned the inside around it, it was the damage had already been done. So when I turned it back on again, I could hear a lot of moving and clanking. That means a lot of parts inside the compressor probably are broken and are moving through the system now, which is why we're replacing everything. So right in front of me is the condenser that's going to be replaced, and you can see that smaller looking condenser slash radiator thing in the middle. That's actually the transmission cooler. So this piece is in the way when I'm going to take this off. However, you don't need to disconnect the lines to move this just to the side in order to remove this. However, you do need to unbolt the radiator from the back, take off the fuse box and the top valance in order to remove it. There's a few bolts and clips on the side, but it's easy to remove. Now, the part that I was talking about that was getting stuck is this right here. This is the compressor clutch that actually engages with the electromagnet to the part that actually spins, that's connected to the rest of the pulley system on the front of the engine. So when this is actually connected, this should move freely when the system is off, but it wasn't doing that. This is South Florida. It is exposed to a lot of elements. It's no surprise to me that it actually seized, but it did actually damage the system, and I'm just going to play it safe and replace all the parts. But before I do that, I'm actually going to do a little test with this. And this is the only electrical part to the compressor, is when the clutch engages and disengages, and just to make sure it clicks on and off. Okay, so I environmentally safely removed the R134 Alpha from the system. As you can see, right there on the right is the low side lines coming out. I had that evacuated. So now there is nothing in the system right now except for contaminants, most likely. These are not serviceable. This is your condenser. So as far as flushing, replacing, yes, but flushing, no. The grooves are way too small to successfully flush it with water, air, any of those things. So you just have to replace it, and that's what we're doing. So I've removed the covers from the top and from the sides here just to expose the lines, because I want to undo those first. I'm going to work my way backwards. I'm going to go from the condenser, connect the lines back to the compressor, and then to the expansion valve back there. So these bolts right here are the lines that connect via pressure. Now this one is 13 millimeter, same as this down here. So I'm going to take those off, and then I'm going to cover these so just to prevent any additional contaminants going in there. If there aren't any, which is great, I want to keep it that way. And then I'll have to remove the bolts from the radiator on this side, and on the right side, once I remove this and the air intake right here, This rubber portion, this comes off very easily. I'm just going to put that to the side just so it has a little bit more room to work. And I'll put this back to the side with a bungee cord just to hold it, and then I'll slip it out. Once I move this over the transmission cooler part, just move it over, slip it out, and this whole plastic piece will just slip right in once I put the new one into there. Okay, so I have taken off the low side and the high side of the condenser. So when I took these off, this one was a 13 millimeter, as was this, but it also had this this star bit right there. You can buy these special bits, but actually a 7 and 32 socket worked just fine to loosen it up and for me to move it. Ideally, I really wouldn't want to do that, but I just kind of tested it out just to see where it was going to go, and it worked just fine. It came right off. And as I pried this off slowly, just a little bit of the R134 alpha escaped. So now there's absolutely no vacuum whatsoever in this system, and it's safe to work on. So it was just a tiny bit, wasn't much, didn't release into the atmosphere, and then I covered these up with just some not toilet paper, but the just some of these napkins right here, just to protect the lines. Don't care about this because this is coming out right now. Okay, so this is the condenser removed. All I had to do was remove the horn and make sure that the clips were disconnected here, and I'll show you those on the plastic piece, plastic housing. Move the radiator back and really just unclip and lift up and then lift it through. It's kind of a bit of finagling, but as long as you're just really careful, you don't have to worry too much about the hoses here for the transmission cooler piece here. Just be really careful. So I'm going to take this opportunity just to kind of clean the front and of this radiator, get some of that nastiness out, and I'm going to show you the condenser. So this is pretty old. And these are all the plastic housings right here. These are the clips down here. These are pretty simple. You just use a screwdriver, pop them open, and then you can remove the lines for the transmission cooler. This is what the outside of it is. So I noticed that it had a break here also. So it's a good thing I'm replacing this whole thing. The plastic housing you're going to keep because that holds the transmission cooler, and that's going to go back on there once I put the new condenser. Okay, so here's the condenser all put in. I went ahead and I reassembled all the parts back in. Everything went in fairly simple. I had to cut down here where the air dam is, that rubber air dam that goes into the plastic piece, and I used zip ties through the holes because it was really difficult to get those plastic pins out, and I didn't want to deal with them anymore. So I just use zip ties. It doesn't affect it at all. It holds it fairly well. It's going to keep it tight right in there. It shouldn't affect it. If it does, I can get more of those plastic tabs like those right there, and I can put those in there. But it went in fairly easy, a lot easier than it did to come out. You have to lift it up off of these hooks right there. The very top black piece you push in and it lifts up, and then there's a housing right down in there where it sits. Let's see if we can get in. Just right there. It's a little hook. You can see it, kind of, sort of. Okay, that's on both sides. So I reassembled everything because I'm going to do the rest tomorrow. This was the most difficult because you had to remove a lot. I disconnected the battery, the air hoses, the fuse box, this top valance here. And what I'm going to do very quickly is, well, not very quickly, I'm going to replace the gaskets for the high side and low side that go into the condenser. And this is them right there. This is some thread locker that I'm going to use for the threads that are there after I clean them off a little bit with a wire brush. I'll put a little bit of pag oil around these gaskets and the rings, so it goes in there and it forms a nice seal So I'll work my way back, continue on with the compressor tomorrow, and then the compression valve, and then we'll make a vacuum, and then we'll recharge the system, and we'll see how that goes. But that's how this went this evening. Fairly simple. I was pretty surprised that I didn't really run into any real major issues. The great thing about this condenser is it already has the dryer installed inside of it. Now the dryer actually goes on this piece right here, and there is a screw top where you can take it out and replace it. This would have been the dryer, but it came with this compressor kit. But I didn't need it because I replaced the entire thing, and it came with it already installed. So that made it a little bit easier, and this is ready to rock and roll, which I think is going to be the most difficult part of this. And we'll move on to the rest tomorrow. Okay, so I went ahead and I put the new gaskets on there. It's a good thing I put those paper towels inside the holes because it was getting a little dirty in here. That right there is just a cover that will come right off on the new condenser, and so I'll plug that back in, and then I will go ahead and screw it in like I did right there, and make sure it has a nice seal with the thread locker in there. So when we pull the vacuum tomorrow, everything is nice and tight. Okay, so this is the removal of the expansion valve. I don't think it's bad, but I might as well just replace it while I'm here. So this is what actually connects to the evaporator core that is behind the glove box here in the truck. So there's the opening right there. I'm gonna go ahead and replace it right here. It just used just a couple of these star bits. This had another one of those reverse male star bits, but I didn't need to do anything with it because the pipes came right off, and so it just had a regular 10 millimeter bolt right there. So go ahead and replace the expansion valve, and then we'll go back to the compressor. I know I said I was going to go from front to back, but since I already had the car down, I'm going to have to lift the car for the compressor. I might as well just knock this out while I'm here. Okay, so now that I'm at the compressor, the first thing that I want to do is I want to take off this, it looks like it's the high side port right there because it's easily accessible. Now, this one is a 13 millimeter. You're going to need a deep socket there because it has that star screw bit hanging out. So loosen it up, and that way when you get underneath the car and actually get into the compressor with the 3 bolts that you're going to need to loosen up, you can't completely remove them because of the tight space, but you'll be able to manipulate the compressor enough, and of course once you take off the belt to it, you'll be able to get to the other pipe right there, move it over, and use just one of these universal joints right here to loosen it up and take those off, and then it's going to be the reverse to putting that back on. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but you want to go ahead and loosen that up here while you have easy access to it. It's not hard to get to as long as you have one of these extensions. So that's what we'll do right now. Okay, now this is a really good view from underneath the car, truck rather. These are the 3 bolts that will need to be removed. I believe these are 13 or 10 millimeter. I don't remember. I don't have the socket set right here. But right here on top where this little plastic clip is, and this can just be easily removed, is the other gas port. I believe that's the low side coming in. So whenever I loosen these bolts and I get the compressor moved a little bit, I am going to position this to where I can actually get to this this bolt so that I can release the valve. Now what I'll probably do is I'll probably run it from right here just so I can actually get it on top and have it already in. So once I get to the top of the car, all I have to do is loosen it and take it off. So I'm gonna loosen this. I don't know if I'm gonna completely remove it just yet. I took the belt off from the tensioner already, so this thing is ready for removal. And that is it. That is how it looks. I marked these with blue. These are the ones that are going to be removed. Okay, this is the old compressor right here. I successfully removed it. It took some finagling, but it came out no problem. The problem are these star screws here, and the new compressor came with something a little bit different, a little bit easier. These things aren't. I don't think these things are that necessary because it already has a bolt that goes on top. So I'm not going to keep these or take these off. I'm just going to use the ones that's on there right now with the covers. But the issue is that you may not or may not be able to see is that this is the actual clutch right here. This is what actually is engaging when the compressor turns on, when you turn on the actual air conditioning system. This is attached to the rest of the pulley system on the engine. So this thing is always spinning. Okay, when the engine is on, this thing is always spinning. But what happens is that when it gets a signal from the compression sensor on the high side, low side, I can't remember, one of the side lines, is when the pressure gets to a certain point, it'll actually disengage. So it'll turn off because it doesn't want to build up too much pressure, and it'll cycle. That's what it's called, cycling. But what the problem was is that this thing seized, and I had already fixed this, but by the time I did, it was already too late. And it can be removed by this simple bolt right there in the middle. is that it was constantly spinning, and building up so much pressure that it damaged this, and it probably damaged the rest of the system. I don't know. That's why I'm just replacing everything. But this is the issue. So this is the only electrical component that's going to go attaching to the truck itself. I'm going to put some QD cleaner, and I think I have it somewhere around here. Yep, there it is. This is QD electronic cleaner that I'm going to use. This is safe for electronic components. It dries very quickly. I'm just going to go ahead and spray the connector that's actually underneath the truck rather, and make sure it has a nice clean connection, and make sure everything is nice and tight in there. So again, with the gaskets here, I'll give them a nice coat of PAG oil, and then I'll connect the lines back to it. Okay, and here we are, finished product with the install. Anyways, so I put the bolts back on there, put some thread locker. I was able to successfully put new gaskets onto the high and low side. Low side is on the right, high side is on the left. As I'm looking at it, use some PAG oil to lubricate those gaskets. All new stuff is on there. And as I said earlier, I used some QD cleaner on the connector right there, and it went back on top of that little plastic piece. So now everything is sealed, from what I understand. So now is going to be the moment of truth, where I pull a vacuum onto the system, let it sit, make sure it holds that vacuum, and if it doesn't, there's a leak somewhere. Got to go back and make sure I can tighten everything. The one thing would probably be the expansion valve. Since I did that really early this morning, I was half asleep. But I think it's on there right, but we'll check and see. But this is the with the belt put on and everything. Okay, so this is moment of truth time. So I have my my manifold gauges right here. I have it connected to the low side. The low side is open. The high side is open here, but this is only for gauge reading. But it is in the closed position. I don't want to use the high side. Don't want to use it ever. The low side right here is going to be, it's in the open position now. So what's going to happen is I'm going to vacuum the line up to 30, up to negative 30, or right here where it says negative 30. I'm going to make the vacuum till it gets to 30, and then I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it for about 15 minutes and make sure it stays there. If it stays, that means I have a good vacuum. And then I'll continue to run it again for another 30 minutes, make sure I get everything in there nice and dry, and that there's nothing flowing in there. So this is where we'll find out. I will leave a link to where I got this entire kit, very inexpensive. I believe it was like $139 plus tax, and it comes with everything that you need. So remember, the high side is there for gauge reading once I actually start charging the system, and I'm hoping that this makes a This is a really good seal. So we'll check it out. Okay, so I have the vacuum pump running. It is right there at 30. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shut this off, and I'm going to keep it there. I'm going to keep it there for about 15-20 minutes. Make sure it stays right there. I don't want it to move up at all. I want this to stay at a good vacuum, and if it's not, then I gotta look around and tighten up the bolts and check for leaks. Okay, it's actually been about 20 minutes and it did not move at all. It did not budge. So we have a successful seal. So now I'm gonna go ahead and let this run for an additional 30 minutes. Make sure I get a nice vacuum in there, vaporize all the moisture. Now, I was reading in some forums, if your compressor actually comes with pre-filled PAG oil, which mine did, 90 milliliters, do you have to worry about the vacuum being pulled and it taking out all of the oil? Now, it will only take out very little. It is designed, this vacuum here, this vacuum pump, this will vaporize any moisture and remove any air. The oil will stay. You don't have to worry about that. I verified that with some car AC techs and some other home AC techs. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep the high side closed, keep the low side open right here, and we're just gonna let the vacuum run for an additional 30 minutes. And then once that's done, we can go ahead and actually start to charge the system and run the test. Okay, it has now been actually about 35 minutes. Let it run just a little bit. No change, nothing at all. Very good seal, very good vacuum. So we'll go ahead and we'll shut this off, and we are going to prep the refrigerant for entry. So remember, keep this closed. All right, this doesn't need to be open at all. All right, and right now what we're going to do is I'm going to put this in the closed position. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this right now. There we go. Okay, so still a vacuum all through here. Okay, now when I disconnect this, we're going to lose vacuum in this hose. So when I connect the refrigerant to the bottom here, I'm going to purge this right here. I'm going to unscrew this, and I'm just going to use a screwdriver and purge it just a little bit, so that way there's a complete vacuum before I open this up. So if you look on this 2012 F-150 4X2 right there, of course it uses R134 alpha, and it takes 24 ounces. All right, so I have a 20-ounce can right now of refrigerant. Okay, and I'm going to fill that up right here completely, and then I will come back with an additional 4 and fill it up. But 20 should be good to kick it off and let us know if it's working or not. Now, I know that some of you may be asking about the pressure sensor switch for the compressor, which is right down here. I don't know if you can see it. It's really well hidden, but it's right down there. Now, I know this is working because when I did some troubleshooting on this system and I removed some refrigerant, I put some in, it clicked on and off when it was low. So I know it's working. Now, if you have to replace it, you do not have to completely drain the system again just to replace that sensor. That sensor has a valve on the bottom, just like these in the line, so that you can unscrew it and put it back on and replace it. Now, I'm not going to if I don't have to, because the only one I could find that I know for a fact would fit in this one is $45, and that's a Napa Auto Parts just down the road. Everything else I got relatively inexpensive. So if I can keep that and use it, that's what I'm gonna go ahead and do. Okay, great. So I have the AC Pro, or the R134 Alpha connected right here. The low side is closed completely. I did purge this little line, and now we have a good vacuum. So what I'm going to do, and especially this is important when you have the can, is to keep it upside down. This valve is open right here, as I'm going to slowly open up the low. But I'm going to do that with the car on and on max AC. When it starts filling up with refrigerant, we should hear the compressor click on, and that way we know that at least that it's filling and that the compressor is working. And then we'll check to see the temperature in the inside the cab. Okay, now this AC is blowing cold. I have it on one of the lower settings right now, just with the fan blowing at whatever the number 3 is there. And I mean, it is gorgeously cold now. As you can see, it's about 82 degrees outside ambient temperature. And even with the car starting up, within a few seconds, it starts blowing cold. I've been driving it around, testing it. Even in this really humid, bad heat, even sitting in traffic at idle, continues to blow cold. The problems I was having even before was this air wasn't coming out super cold unless you were driving it around at close to about 1500 RPMs. Now RPMs don't matter. With the condenser replaced, and the compressor, and just a brand new vacuum, and everything, just the whole smash being completely changed out, has solved all of the problems. This is perfect, beautiful, and this is how you change an entire air conditioning system of serviceable parts in 2012 F-150. I hope this video helps you out. Any specific questions, just please leave them in the comments. I'll get back to you if I can. If I don't know the answer, hopefully I can find the resource at least. But I got to tell you, just being on YouTube and looking at different documentation really helped out with this with this job. It wasn't very difficult. It was just a little time consuming. I think in total it took me roughly about 4.5 hours doing it all by myself. So enjoy, and this is nice and cold, and I'm enjoying it now.